Hello, my name is Bryan Houston. I am with Neptune GameTime, based out of Tyler, Texas. And during these strange times that we live in, I have the time and the opportunity and the privilege of being able to talk to a number of high school coaches around the country about what they're doing during COVID-19. And I'm very honored to have with me today a very successful Texas high school football coach and a very successful author who's got quite the side hustle going on right now as he teaches other coaches about culture. Coach Randy Jackson from North Forney High School. Coach, how you doing?
I'm great, Bryan. Thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. It's always a big honor to get interviewed by you, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. You're very kind, and we know you're lying, but that's okay. So tell me first of all, for those who don't know about Coach Jackson, been coaching for 30 years, has coached in the smallest schools you can possibly think of to the largest schools you can possibly think of, has been successful basically everywhere he's gone. But in the last few years, the emphasis, I guess, starting with your time at Grapevine High School is when you started really focusing on culture over strategy, which is what your website and the name of your books. And by the way, his second book, Culture Defeats Strategy 2, is out right now, and we'll tell you how to get that later. So tell me a little bit, first of all, let's talk about COVID-19, and then I'm going to get into the things that you're doing with culture. So as the head football coach at North Forney High School, how are you dealing with this complete shutdown of our athletics, and at a time when you would normally be, really amping up your off-season workouts, possibly going through spring training, and trying to get your football team ready for next year? What are you doing right now?
Well, really, all of us are just in the same boat of all we can do is provide workouts, Zoom meetings. We can just provide it to them and hope that they do it and try to hold them accountable as much as we can. So I think we're doing a pretty good job at North Forney. What we're doing is we're having team Zoom meetings 3 times a week at noon. So on Monday, it is a team meeting that I lead. On Wednesday, it is position groups. They watch a little bit of video and things like that with their position coach. And then on Friday, we have a team meeting again, but we try to have guest speakers. Like today, I've got Nate Boyer going to speak to him, who was, for you guys, you probably recognize but he was the guy who was an Army Ranger, and then at 30 years old had never played football before and walked on at Texas and was their deep snapper, almost made the team with the Seahawks. But anyway, so we try to find people like that to kind of give them something good. And then we've used a company called the Performance Course, which is big in Texas, and they have some free workouts there, and then they have some workouts that you can pay just a little bit for. We've decided to do that. So, bottom line is it's almost like, I think, parents, when you send your kids to college, you hope you have grounded them and they understand what it takes to be successful, but they either got to do it or they don't. I think that's kind of where coaches are right now. I think 10, 15 years ago, I would have worried myself sick whether or not they were working out or not. But I think as you get older, you have to give some of that stuff up. You just kind of learn just through experience. So for the most part, a third of them are probably doing awesome. A third of them are probably doing okay. And a third of them probably aren't doing much. And that's probably the ratio for most teams throughout the United States.
And you won't know which third is what until you actually get back out there on the field, right?
Yeah, and here's what we've told our guys is there'll be more surprise all-district players next year, because there'll be some guys who worked their tails off who got to gain an edge over the guys who didn't. And because when they show up at North Forney, we're going to work them, and they know it, and they're used to it. And but human nature is human nature. So I've told them there'll be teams that'll win state championships this year who would not have won the state championship without COVID-19. Not that that sounds terrible. That's a bad way to say it, but there'll be teams who will gain an edge. There'll be teams who should have won, if it would have stayed normal, who would have won a state championship, who won't now because they're losing ground.
And you find out who wants it more.
100%. And you can really tell, like on our Zoom meetings. I mean, that's one thing about the new life we live in now is Zoom meetings. Everybody's kind of getting used to them and understanding them. So our first few Zoom meetings, you couldn't get our players really to talk. Now they're kind of used to it. But yeah, we can get a sense of what players are working hard and which ones are just kind of, coming to the meeting.
And how often do you actually meet with your coaches?
Well, we meet twice a week on Monday and Friday before the team meeting. But this is my fourth year at North Forney. This is something else I probably learned as I've gotten older, but I'm not freaking out about that either. I mean, it'll be our fourth year. I'm on the offensive side of the ball. I think our defensive staff, we're changing a little bit on defense. They're meeting a little bit more, but it's still April, right? And so we should be in spring ball right now. I mean, we were fixing to start having heavy doses of meetings if all this wouldn't have happened, but we got time. And I'm afraid we're going to open this economy up. And I know it's easy for me to say because I'm getting a paycheck, but we're going to open it up too soon. And then we're going to have another big round of this in about August and lose football season. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really praying against that. But so we're trying not to freak out about, I think we got time, I guess. I think we got time to meet in the summer, and I think we'll be fine.
I talked to Carthage coach Scott Surratt about a week ago, and he said that John King at Longview, who's the president of the High School Coaches Association this year, had, I think, requested with the UIL some kind of contingency plan for, loosening the time that you can get with your team once you're able to get back to normal, that kind of thing. How much time, if suddenly things were, let's say they decided that, okay, it's July 15th and it looks like you're going to be able to have a season. How much time does it take you to get your football team game ready?
What they're giving us, they started this last year was great is, we get the strength and conditioning stuff, and then they were giving us 2 hours a week. It'd be great if they'd give us 4 hours a week or something like that, where we could kind of go an hour a day. That's how really most states do it. Most states don't get them like we get them during the school year, but they get more access to them in the summer. So what I would just hope they would do is kind of let us be like other states, since we didn't get spring. I mean, basically we're like most states now, right? Where we don't get, when I tell coaches, that's one thing I get to do is go speak a little bit around the country. And when I tell them that we get 34 days to have 18 practices in the spring, their jaws all drop. And, so Texas does it as college-like as possible. But because of this, we're really kind of like, North Dakota or Oregon or anybody, right, they don't get really a real spring ball. So I'm hoping they'll let us do it more like they do in the summer, which is have more access. But again, now I think the guys who really should be freaking out are the guys who just took a new job. Mm-hmm. But for the guys like me who have been somewhere for a little while, it really won't take long so when I first got into coaching 30 years ago, the first week of fall camp was devoted to conditioning. Mm-hmm. And, you really, you ran plays and all that, but I just remember us meeting as I'm an assistant coach, not saying much. And it is about, okay, what drills are we going to do to get them in shape? We ran the heck out of them. And well, now because of summer conditioning, we start the first day of fall camp, and normally it is a regular day. We're not running sprints afterwards. We practice fast. But anyway, so I think what will happen this year in fall camp will be a fall camp of 25 years ago, where the first week's going to be devoted to a lot more conditioning.
The one thing I think I see that's going to be an impact for every team this coming year, if you're able to play, is, you concentrate so much in the off season on bigger, stronger, faster. Faster you can work on alone, but a lot of these kids just don't have access to weight rooms and weight facilities and all the things that you're able to do under normal circumstances. So I can see a lot of bodies shrinking this year. Your linemen aren't going to be as big and strong. Nobody's going to be as big and strong as they would have been under normal circumstances, correct?
Yeah, they might be as big, right? Because the quarantine, we're all eating too much. But,
True.
I do think telling them stories of champions are always relevant. And so I've mentioned to my team probably twice that Herschel Walker, who we know won the genetic lottery, I mean, but still, he supposedly did 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 sit-ups a day and didn't really lift weights. I mean, there's got to be some gold in there somewhere. So
Yeah.
at least it's an encouragement.
And for you, from a personal development standpoint, I know you are very busy developing other coaches right now, but again, talking to Coach Surratt last week, I was asking him, what are you doing? Who are you watching? Are you watching a lot of tape of other teams getting new ideas? He said he was watching a lot of LSU tape because this past year they did a lot of things that he feels like he can incorporate into his style of football. How about you? Are you doing anything like that? And who are you looking at right now?
Yeah, for us, our offense is pretty different. We
Mhm.
kind of pattern it after Art Briles offense, and so there's not a whole lot of people that run it. But yeah, for me, I'm studying college offenses that run it, which is Central Florida, people like that. There really aren't many. Syracuse, some of those. So and YouTube is a great tool. So it's not like you have to man, I can't get film of it. And it's not. It's television, replay, so it's not end zone and all that. But those are the people I'm studying. We're going to a different defense, so my defensive staff is studying that kind of stuff. But I think again, as you get older, you really just have your stuff you believe in, you want to grow and all that every year. But we don't make, if we change 10-15% a year, that's probably the max we're going to change on what we do.
Right. And then from a personal standpoint, just when you've got downtime, and are you a TV watcher? Are you binge watching anything? Or are you reading a lot of stuff? What are you doing to keep yourself sane when you take a break?
Well, for me, yeah, I like to watch Netflix as much as anybody else does. Um, but I am kind of a growth mindset guy, so I'm a reader. I am, try to stay off social media. It's hard, right? Because you can just, at least social media, like with the quarantine stuff, you feel like you can still connect people with Twitter and Facebook, but it's so addictive. I try not to be on it all the time. But I'm also a blogger, or I send out emails about twice a week, so I'm kind of working on getting some of those ahead of schedule. I do clinics, like I'm doing an offensive clinic this week. And so, I try to kind of, like you said earlier, kind of have a little side hustle. I sell books and things like that. So it's really been, I think with the Corona stuff, is people, like I said earlier, are learning that, I don't know. I assume when all this gets back to normal that there'll still be normal clinics where coaches come to a hotel. But I also think that Zoom clinics and all that will become much more the norm too. And so that's been a positive for me. Is like this week I did a clinic on our offense, and I had 62 coaches. And it's, I did it Monday, Wednesday, Friday session, Tuesday, Thursday, where I didn't have that big a group, but it's no problem. They can ask questions. I mean, it's just like you and I are doing now. And so I think that there's a lot of benefit in how we'll move forward with the Zoom stuff too, on teaching and interacting with people.
Okay, and I'll get off this is the one last light question of the Netflix stuff. Anything you recommend?
Um, Boy, I tell you, and I watched this about a year ago, but there's a little mini series. It's an old Western kind of called Godless,
Okay.
that it's really good, I think. Um, but yeah, I'm a kind of a country guy, but Longmire, I
Yeah, I
think it's,
love Longmire.
yes. So, I'm a Parks and Rec guy. I think that's pretty good humor, right? But again, it's like Twitter, it's a trap, right? And so, when that episode ends and you have that button, you try to push it before it, and so before you know it, you just sat there so long. But it is a nice escape every now and then.
Okay, how confident are you that we're going to play football this fall?
I'm probably about 80%. I really think if we would continue the quarantine, then I think I would feel better. But now when Michigan and Nevada and people like that are all like, I think people are have set home. It seems like as long as, and I really am afraid that if we that'll be what'll get football season if we stop the quarantine too soon.
Do you envision any scenario where you'd be playing high school football games in empty stadiums with no fans?
I don't. I don't. I just don't see the UIL doing it. But this is a guy who really isn't in on all that. But I do think that if we can just, here's what I want to say: it's this coming up season will be the most important football season I think in the history of high school football. On either scenario, if we get to play again, it'll be a celebration. It'll be people will certainly not take it for granted. If we don't play, I think it's the most important football season in the history for coaches to make sure we are still serving kids who are going to be seniors next year. I've got 4 kids with Division I offers, and it's tough. So I think either way, our coaches, we're going to earn every penny next year because it's going to be different than it ever has been before.
You just hit on something that sparks a question for me. How are you handling what would normally be recruiting season, college coaches coming to see your kids, coming to see you about your kids? Under normal circumstances, what would that look like, and what does it look like now?
Well, it's really been okay, but we are a morning practice team at North Forney, so we're on the field by 6:45 or 7 a.m., and that allows college coaches to come. We're about 15, 20 miles east of Dallas, so we're in a pretty good location, but we'll get 2 or 3 college coaches a day who'll come watch practice. Then I'll get 2 or 3 more during the day who'll come in and talk to me. But I've had it's really been a pleasant surprise of how many coaches, of course, they're like us, right? They're sitting on their porch, twiddling their thumbs. I mean, I think they're really watching. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
So they're like us. They can Zoom meet with their team and all that. I think they've done a good job. I've almost been contacted more this spring than I have been before. I've got one kid with 20 offers, and so that probably skews the numbers a little bit. But they've been very active. Here's the positive thing I think of it is recruiting the last 15 years has moved to sophomore and juniors. And back when I played, my first scholarship offer was after my senior year, which never happens now. And now I think because of no spring ball and all that, I think I'm hopeful that a kid is going to be able to have a good senior year, and the scholarship offers will be more like they used to be, where because a kid that's a late developer has had a hard time in the new way they do things. So I'm hoping it'll be more old school, where they can, to have a good senior year. It's my hope.
Sure. Okay, let's talk about culture defeats strategy. Tell me, first of all, what that's about. I know we've done this interview on radio, but there are a lot of people who didn't hear that. And so this may be a completely new concept to many of the people that see this. Tell me how that came about and what you've been doing.
So in 2015, I guess this is how most people make a big change in their life, is they go through a crisis. And so in 13 and in 14, had pretty rough seasons, wasn't very content. And so in 2015, someone suggested that I hire a coach, a guy named Bryan. He works with college programs, and he lived pretty close to me. So I hired Bryan, worked with him. He showed me how to do core values. He showed me how to create a culture. It was a game changer for me. About a year later, I'm at one of his seminars, and he said, "You ought to write a book." And once I found out that Amazon will print any book, you don't have to get it approved, I'm like, well, okay, whatever, right? Hopefully I'll sell 100 copies. My grandkids will have something they can read one day. But it's a how-to book. I hate reading books where when it's over with, I'm not really sure what I got out of it. So this is it's funny, the title's Culture Defeats Strategy, because I really am a big believer in it's not what you do, it's how you do it. But there are a ton of strategies in there of how to implement it. And so I've sold about 8,000 copies. It's been awesome. It's really opened a lot of doors for me. In 2017, I went to North Forney, and we had a good season. We were 10-3, and we implemented the culture there. So I thought it was really a good way to do it. Is the first book was how to do the culture, and then Culture Defeat Strategy 2 is, okay, I'm at a new school now, let's implement it at a new place. And we had a great season. That book is sold. I mean, I released it January 1. It's over 2,000 copies, so it's doing good. But anyway, it's just kind of been a deal, and that's allowed me to mentor coaches a little bit. And I really love teaching. I love talking about things like that. I think culture is a big word that's used now, but I'm not really sure people quite get how easy it is. It's not well, let me just say this, how simple it is. It's not easy. I think it's a daily thing. We talk a lot about daily meetings and things like that, but coaches that don't have systems, and they don't have a culture. And so if someone is looking to really take their program to the next level, these books will help you, I really believe, as far as creating a system.
So define for me as best you can in this platform what you consider to be culture, and what that looks like at North Forney and the places that you've been since
Okay.
you implemented this.
Okay, great question. Because again, culture is that word that's out there, but culture is how your team thinks, speaks, and acts. And so I got to speak to a Division I college last year to the whole staff. It was a lot of fun. And I use this example. If your team was to come up and hit a knee in front of me, and I said, hey, what are y'all about? If they didn't give me a pretty similar answers, that means you don't have a culture. And so at North Forney, if Bryan, if you were in front of my team and said, hey, what are y'all about? Well, our guys would say juice and competition and tough and discipline and family. I mean, they would give you similar answers because we have core values. We stress them every day, and we have an intentional culture. And I think one of my favorite stories, just real quick, is after the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, a reporter went out there and she interviewed every custodian, secretaries, anybody she could. And at the end of the day, she said, here's the secret to the Seattle is everybody speaks fluent Carroll, which is the head coach is Pete Carroll. And she said, everybody spoke the same language. That's what everybody should be striving to do. That's an intentional culture. An intentional culture is not going to make it where your program doesn't have problems, but it's going to make it where you can solve those problems much easier. You're going to have less problems. It's just a great way to live your life where people are thinking the same thing and behaving the same way. And they're all in together. Like, actually, I think my guys in this social media world of look at me, I think you better talk about team, and you better talk about what you're about, or it's going to be a bunch of individuals.
How much has that changed the way you coached prior to becoming focused on your culture, and how did that translate to success on the field?
Yeah, and that's a really good question too. I used to be the play caller. I love offense. I mean, the clinics I'm doing this week are about our offense. I love it. But I think for me, I realized that if we're going to have an amazing elite culture is what I like to call it, that means we have to have a daily team meeting. There has to be a little movie clip in there. We have to fascinate them. I mean, I tell our parents that their children are in a leadership academy that happens to play football. And so I got to back that up. And I don't think I can do that and still focus half my time on offense. I mean, I'm still involved with it, but yeah, I think that it's changed me as far as realizing it's not the perfect play call our team's gonna overachieve. It is our culture. So I've got to be the chief culture operator, I guess. I mean, I think Urban Meyer said this, but the head coach's number one job is to maintain the culture. And so at practice, that's what I'm doing. And I mean, we're going hard, and I'm making sure.
I asked you this on the radio. I'll ask you this here. Of the As you were putting together your culture, um, who were your influences? What books were you reading? Who are the coaches that impacted you? Maybe from something you read, maybe there weren't people that you had direct contact with, but they were people that were maybe doing these kinds of things, and you were able to take some of those ideas and meld them into what you do.
Well, my biggest thing, and I believe this wholeheartedly, is everybody needs mentors and everybody needs a coach. And so Brian Kane cost me a lot of money, but it was worth every penny. He was a coach. I still use him today. And I think that is a big deal. I think you got to find a way, whether you're an interviewer or whoever else, you need to be in some kind of mastermind group or something, but you better be around some people that are helping you get better. I talk about Pete Carroll's book, Win Forever, all the time. I mean, it was one I read before I got into the Brian Kane stuff. But I think with this day and age, with YouTube and podcasts and all that, people that you never meet can still be in your inner circle because you can read so much and find out so much about people. But, it's the typical people, Dabo Sweeney, Nick Saban, all those people who talk about, I think like Dabo Sweeney and Nick Saban, their offense and defense and all that's important, but it's not the plays that they run that make those programs different. It's the culture they create. And so much information out there that anybody listening to this, anybody out there can research and find it.
And you just mentioned two guys who are about as opposite in the way they run their programs as any two people you could describe. With Dabo, it's family, it's fun, there's a lot of that going on, a lot of love. With Nick, it is all business, it's intense, it's tough, but they're both equally successful. And so the culture is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all thing, right?
No, and what I want to do is be both. Here's what I talk about in my second book, but I think the relationship ought to be parent to child. So, and I think the assistant coaches are more uncle to nephew, but I think the head coach has got to be the parent. And what that means to me is you can't, like, your kids are going to screw up, but you never stop correcting them. You don't, there's coaches out there that'll just get tired of messing with a kid. And they'll be, they'll just kind of wash their hand. And a parent can't do that with their child. And so, that's what I preach to my coaches is it's got to be a parent to child, uncle to nephew. But we just, it's got to be every day. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think like PJ Fleck, like I'd want to play for PJ Fleck. Tom Herman is the head coach at Texas. Urban Meyer, those guys are not PJ Fleck, right? I mean, and what we have aspects of both of them in our program because I think that's what a good dad would do. A good dad's gonna laugh and joke and make it fun. Pete Carroll talks about fascinating people. We're gonna do all that, but we're also gonna be disciplinarians and hold you accountable to the nth degree. And so I think you have to have some of everything to be a good parent.
I don't know if this thing's going to cut off in 10 minutes or not, but I'm going to try to keep it within 10 minutes. So tell me about your website. Tell me about the clinics that you're doing right now, just the things you're doing to try to pour into other coaches. And you're doing this with coaches all around the country. I mean, normally, I guess under normal circumstances, you'd be traveling a lot. But now you're doing these things via technology.
Yeah, I used to get to travel some, and I've kind of quit traveling a little bit. I've kind of gotten where I don't travel as much now, but I've got a website called CoachRandyJackson.com. There's a lot of resources on there, leadership lessons, which is what we use to have team meetings with our players. But there's some organizational head coaching stuff, offensive stuff. I mean, I got 47 things on there. I've got some videos on there, and I just, again, I like to teach. I like to feel like mentoring people. This week we're doing Zoom clinics of offense with 62 different coaches. And really I tried to limit to non-Texas coaches so
Hmm.
none of our opponents would be on the deal. I got a guy from Canada, right? I mean, so again, Zoom is so, when we first started doing Zoom, I think I did the first Zoom clinic I ever did was about 2 months ago on core values. And I was nervous, right? Now I'm not nervous about it. No one else is nervous. I mean, so I think it's a platform now for people like that, me, that want to do clinics and things to reach people. But, the books have been good. I really think that the edge is the mental game and core values. And when I got in it 30 years ago, the edge was having a great weightlifting program, a great off season. And now everybody knows how to do that. So I think the new edge is the mental game. And so I'm a big believer. I love being passionate about that. And so that's probably what I'm known the most for is helping people create a culture. And so on my website, I've got a lot of resources to do that. And but other than that, I mean, it is for what I've been doing during the quarantine is, figuring out, okay, how can I get with coaches and how can I help mentor people?
And you also have a Facebook page. And tell me, is that completely different than what your website is, or very similar?
Well, no, it's really it's a closed Facebook page. We've got about 800 coaches on there
Wow.
now, and basically it's people talking culture. And it's not me trying to sell stuff on that. It is like I say, I send emails twice a week. And so if you'd like to get in their culture emails, how to create a culture, I post those on there. So if anybody wants to join, it's called CoachRandyJackson.com on Facebook. Ask to join. I'll let you in, of course. If you'd like twice weekly emails, go to my website, CoachRandyJackson.com, and just become a subscriber, and I'll add you to the list. But I think that is probably, again, one of the benefits of the quarantine is coaches are really doing. I think coaches are being more intentional about growth mindset. And I hate to say it, but the longer the quarantine goes, the more coaches are going to get tired of Netflix and maybe, get better during this time. That's what I'm preaching is we've all been given a forced sabbatical. Let's improve.
Tell me how people can get the books. You've got 2 books, Culture Defeat Strategy 1 and 2. So how can people get the books?
There's 2 ways to get them. Amazon. They're going to cost a little bit more on Amazon because Amazon takes a huge cut of it. Or you can go to my website, CoachRandyJackson.com. I'll sign the inside cover. Whenever I die, the price of the value of the book will go up like 5%. It'll be amazing for you. That's my attempt at humor, Bryan. Sorry.
Good.
Anyway, so two different ways. Amazon, CoachRandyJackson.com. Please cut that out of the interview. It was terrible. So, but yeah, if you go to my website, I'll mail it that day and get it to you as quick as I can.
And the last thing I want to ask, I did not, in my intention with these interviews is not to do a blatant commercial for Game Time, but I would like to ask you, because you have worked with us for a long time, just to give just a brief statement about your experience with Game Time.
Yeah, I love Game Time. The first time I ever heard of Game Time I was an assistant coach in Mesquite. We didn't have it. We were at Wiley Stadium, and it sounded like Wiley had a radio station. And I thought, what is that? And so I love that kind of stuff. I'm glad Forney ISD does Game Time. It helps us so much with, and I know everybody out there can relate to this, but if you've ever told a kid, hey, give me some music for practice, but make sure it's clean. It's impossible, right? I mean, if there's no profanity in it, then there's going to be a lot of sexual innuendos or whatever. And so Game Time is a great way to take care of your music. It's very customizable. So we love it for practice, but my favorite thing of game time is before volleyball games and basketball games, and of course football games, where it sounds like, it just sounds like there's a radio station there that they make announcements. But of course, you control all that, but the announcements between the songs are so professional. Just gives you a college type feel. I love it.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach, very much. And I do appreciate your time. I think you do great things with what you're doing. I think it's a brilliant idea. And obviously, other coaches around the country think so too. And it just keeps growing. But I do hope that you can get back to normal and get back on the field as soon as possible. I hope you and your family stay well, and all your kids and your coaches. And hopefully, we'll get through this thing soon.
Thanks, Bryan. Stay safe, man. And yeah, let's stay home long enough that we can get over this and play football this fall.
Amen. I'm all for that. Coach Randy Jackson of North Forney High School, again, talking about culture defeating strategy. My name is Bryan Houston. I'm with Neptune GameTime. If you're interested in finding out more about us, you can go to our website, neptunenow.com. Coach, have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon sometime.
Thanks, Bryan. Thanks for having me.
You bet.